how to start prophesying, or let me say the simplest way to prophesy. Before I get into the, codes and, ways of how one can prophesy, let us start by understanding what is prophesying. Now, many people think prophesying is calling names, locations, and saying situations of people. But that is just part of it. It is not the entire thing. But in the simplest way, I can define prophecy as a way of transporting God's message to God's people. In other words, God speaks to you about certain things, maybe about someone. Then you take the same information and then you pass it to someone. So within the information, they can be names, they can be locations, they can be people's situations, because they must understand that in the prophetic, there are dimensions. There is what we call word of knowledge, word of wisdom, and all those kind of stuff. But I don't want to get into that because I want to teach you the simplest way to learn how to prophesy. This is a tested strategy that I've seen working for me personally, and I have applied it over and over, and I saw it working. One thing that I've realized that many people can be born with a gift. Many people can be born with a certain grace in their life. Maybe the grace of healing, the grace of deliverance, the grace of the prophetic. There are many gifts or grace, if I were to put it that way. But one thing that I have learned and I've understood over the years as a young minister, more especially who desired so much to move in the prophetic, it was that the spiritual knowledge works. The spiritual world works so much when you have knowledge. And I learned this from Prophet Shepherd Bushiri. He said, if you want to navigate in the spiritual world, if you want to be a master in the spiritual world, there's something that you need to master. And what you need to master, it is knowledge. How well do you know about something? Because knowledge in the realms of the spirit, it is like light. It enlightens your path, because the spiritual realm, it is dark. So when you have knowledge, you will be able to maneuver and you begin to see what begins to happen. That is why if you desire to move so much in the prophetic, you really need to be a student of the word, because the Bible says the entrance of the word produces light. So it teaches me one thing: when I have so much of the word, it means that I will produce more light, which will give me access to see in the realms of the spirit. But that is another teaching of another day, where I'll be teaching you how to navigate the spiritual realm. So we are here just to explain how you can begin to move in the prophetic. Now, as I've said, that knowledge is important. Why am I saying this? It is because, look at the life of Samuel. Samuel was called by God, and, as a young man, he begins to hear the voice of the Lord. And then when he's hearing the voice of the Lord, he does not understand where the voice is coming from or who's speaking to him. But right there is a mystery, because in his life, there was someone by the name of Eli, and Eli was experienced in the voice of God. So Eli, in other words, had a certain level of knowledge of how the voice of God sounds like, or how it speaks. So it was easy for Samuel to develop the gift, the calling that was inside him, because of the presence of Eli. Because Eli had a certain knowledge about the voice of God. So if you want to move in the prophetic or any other gift that is out there, you really need to find someone who has acquired a certain level of knowledge in that dimension that you desire to move in. Look, there are people who have walked with God so much that they have mastered the ways of God and how God moves. We cannot rule that out, and we always need to learn. There are people that really impacted my life as well, even in my journey as a prophetic student. And then one time when I was studying the Bible, I realized something, and it is a trick, and it is something, the Bible has got a lot of shortcuts. But the problem with most of us is that we don't want to go, and study the Bible and get those secrets for us. When you study the Bible, there are deep revelations that will begin to open your eyes. Then you will begin to see things that other people don't see. One time I'm studying the Bible, I'm studying about Elijah and Elisha. And as I was studying about Elijah and Elisha, I realized something, that in the entire journey of Elijah and Elisha, we don't hear Elijah teaching Elisha how to prophesy. But one thing that we know for sure, in the life of Elisha, there was Elijah. This is why I'm saying that if you want to move in the gifts of the Spirit, in the prophetic or whatever, you need someone with knowledge in that area. It will be so much simpler for you. Now, as they are walking together, they even cross the Jordan River. We never hear Elijah teaching Elisha anything about the prophetic, anything about miracles, anything about. But watch this. As Elisha was coming back after his master had been taken by the whirlwind, we begin to learn a mystery right there. What is the mystery right there? That when he comes back, he tries to cross the Jordan River going back, but he realized that he's failing. Then he calls on the God of Elijah. Then he hits the water. Now the question is, how did he know that if I hit the water like this, I will get the same results as my master, or as his mentor or his father Elijah? It teaches me one thing. There is a code in the prophetic that will make you to prophesy with simplicity, and that code is the code of observation. You see, if you want to move swiftly in the prophetic, you need to observe those who've got the knowledge. And then as you are observing, learn how they are doing it. It has really, really helped me in my prophetic journey. And trust me, sometimes when I'm even prophesying and I'm speaking to someone who's in front of me, I use the same strategies that I've seen great men of God who've got knowledge in the prophetic, moving it. And that has opened my eyes. That is the same code that Elisha used, the code of observation. He was observing whatsoever that Elijah was doing. Now he could implement it. This is why Jesus says a certain statement, saying, what you see me do, it is because I've seen my Father do. Which means that in the prophetic, we can copy. We can learn by just learning how the prophet prophesies, and you follow the same strategy, you can get the same results. And these are the things that most people, they don't know. It has worked for me. I've spent a lot of hours just sitting down and watching men of God prophesying. Even before going to a service, let's say, for example, I'm going for a prophetic service, I will take my time, sit down, just watch men of God. Of course, you have to choose one who you feel that your spirit, connects with. So I will sit down right there and I will just watch the prophet prophesying. I will just watch the prophet prophesying over all the videos. Some of the videos I would have watched them before, but I will repeat them, trying to see how is he catching this name? How is he catching this location? How is he moving like this? How is he moving like that? By that, I've realized that it has sharpened the gift that God has given me. Because you can have the gift, but if the gift is not sharpened, if you don't have knowledge on how to operate in that gift, it will never move swiftly or efficiently. That has made me to master certain codes of the prophetic, where I get into a service like this and I just look at the congregation. All I begin to see, it is their names, their problems, where they are coming from, what is happening in their life. And that has made me to be a sharp student of the prophetic. Not even a single day in my entire life where I get to a service and I've missed the prophetic. No. Why? It is because I have observed how great men who move in the prophetic, how they do it. In the next video, I will be analyzing all my prophetic mentors to show you what I learned from them, how I began to move in the dimension they move. all of them that they impacted my life, because I'm not just a mushroom type of a person. There are things that I've learned from great men of God. So I want to in the next video, I'm going to share that with you, to say, this is what I learned from this man of God. This is what I learned from this. This is how they moved in the prophetic. This is how they moved. This is how they impacted my gift as well. So it is important to understand that if you are to move in the prophetic, if you are to move in every kind of a gift, what you need, number one, it is knowledge. And number two, you need someone who has acquired that knowledge well enough to say, okay, they've acquired this knowledge. So if I can move towards this direction, I know for sure, even me, God will actually speak to me. Another thing that is very, very much important, as a student of the prophetic, you need to observe how those who went before you are doing it. When you begin to observe, it will be simple for you to move and to practice how the giftings of the prophetic, how the movements of the Spirit move like. I can't wait to see you on the next one. Of course, this is Wiseman Blessed, and I will see you on the next one. It's a shalom from me.